Hi, welcome to the final lecture for EDF4004. I know it's quite emotional thinking about we're coming to the end. This lecture will be short and sweet, but everyone needs some closure at some point in time. If I think about kind of starting this semester, and for most of us, so I speak on behalf of the tutors, we quite enjoy our teaching, and this semester has been different than any other semester, but we do thank you for engaging. Otherwise it'd be quite lonely on our end, but thank you for engaging. I know this semester has kind of been so different from any other, but thank you for engaging, thank you for showing up, thank you for just interacting with us. And we hope that you have gotten something out of this unit, not only some more information and content knowledge and skills in developing assessment tasks and thinking about reporting, but that these can then translate to your actual practices, and that this is helpful for you as you develop as a beginning teacher. So I just want to kind of highlight a few things. Now, there is a video that talks more about reporting, and particularly parent-student teacher interviews, but just some key things about reporting student learning, and just thinking about the roles of reporting. So ultimately, we report to ensure that we can enhance student learning, which is quite interesting because I think a lot of times as educators, reporting, and particularly in schools, is this feeling of like something that you have to do, and sometimes it feels quite superficial in some of the feedback given. But ultimately, the main goal of reporting is to enhance student learning. And actually, there's a reflective process that happens in reporting of identifying, where the student is at, where they've been, where they're going, but also, considering our own teaching of how, what role we play within that. Another role is really the idea of encouraging a strong partnership between school and home. So, if reporting shouldn't be the first time that you've ever talked with a parent or ever communicated, but it is often sometimes the most kind of formal way of inviting parents into the discussion and really making that link between, home and school, and helping open those communication channels. So it's really important to kind of develop those relationships, and understanding that parents, sometimes I think teachers fear parents, but parents actually have a really in-depth understanding of their child. And while, we have to really think about how we ask teachers, or how we ask parents to get kind of their feedback on their child's kind of skills and habits and so on. They can bring quite a lot of understanding and knowledge to us that can help us with our teaching. So they give a perspective of their child that may help us understand how to best teach them. So encouraging that partnership is really, really important. Also, reporting allows us to kind of identify some strategies, and collectively, alongside parents and students, to really help them achieve. So understanding that, kind of the best approach to student learning is a very varied approach, and that it's supported through both home and school, and not focusing on too many, one or two. Just some things to consider when communicating with parents, and particularly within conferences, is kind of preempting what might be some possible questions that they might ask. What do you think parents want to hear? And this may completely be different for each school that you're at, depending on the kinds of parents that they're, the type of school. But really, coming into these exchanges with parents, or these opportunities to talk with parents, and thinking about what might they be wanting to ask, and kind of preparing yourself a little bit. I think a lot of parents, from my experience, just even from people that I know, they want to know where their child fits in within the class. Like, are they one of the better students? So it's also kind of being able to use the curriculum, and not specifically the curriculum, but by understanding that there's a certain kind of standard that students are expected at, and it's helpful to be able to talk to parents in regards to what's required, and whether they sit above that, or they're developing towards that standard, instead of talking more about where they sit in front of, like, in regards to other students that they might know. I think the other question to consider is how interviews can encourage that strong partnership. and think about kind of, how that meeting with the parents, how that's going to develop a partnership, and what things need to go into that. And it is, particularly if you're thinking about, a full year, you might actually have the same students over several years. So it's really kind of developing those communication channels early, and building that relationship, and thinking about what sorts of things you can do within those interviews to actually encourage that relationship. And that's partly making interactive, asking questions, involving them in the conversation instead of telling them what to do. The other question to consider is, what if parents are not interested? There'll be a lot of times that you will invite parents to have a conversation, and parents don't get involved. And I think it's really important to kind of use the collective school to help you understand how to reach out to those parents. There could be language barriers, there could be all sorts of things. And parents may not want to have, we're seeing this particularly with kind of COVID-19. And there are some parents that have taken on this idea of homeschooling and really embraced it, and really, become, transformed their house into a little schoolhouse, where there's other parents that have said, it's not my job, I'm not doing anything. So you have a variety of different parents from different backgrounds that will have different approaches to what they see their role is, in partnering with schools. And some of them may not feel that they have any role at all. So it's understanding that and trying to think of how you approach that and how you can involve parents, and but also not push them into something that they're not comfortable with. So what's next? In thinking about how you might link this unit to your future classroom, I think these are just kind of some of my tips. Take them or leave them. Always consider the purpose of your assessment task and ask how the evidence will help you to enhance learning. And not only enhance learning, but teaching. Oftentimes we assess and we do this, but we often don't think about why we're doing it and what the purpose is. And I think it's really important to kind of understand what we're doing it for, what the evidence will be, and how we will use this, how specifically we'll use this evidence to help us encourage student learning, and will also help us kind of give feedback on our teaching. So it's really thinking through that process all the time and ensuring that we know the purpose, we know what kind of evidence it will provide, and how that evidence will help us cater for individual student needs and also to enhance learning in our classroom. Assess often and in different ways, understanding that there's not necessarily one right way to do it. And I think it's being able to kind of say we've assessed in many ways, and over a long period of time, so we really have a valid understanding of what the students can and cannot do. So that's really, really important, and having that mixture of summative and formative. The other kind of advice I give is involve students in the assessment process. So I think, even in this unit, what we try to do is we try to get you to look at, the rubrics and look at your own assessment tasks. And I think one of the things is that it tries to create ownership, but it also helps them understand the process of assessment. And I think one of the things is that we need to, a lot of students feel like assessment is done to them and they don't see it as a process. And I think that's part of our role, is helping students see that assessment is a process, not just something that's done to them. And how do we involve them in it? And how do we help them see assessment as a learning opportunity, that it can help them become more aware of their strengths and weaknesses, and that it can help them kind of self-regulate. The other thing I'd like to kind of emphasize is that parents, depending on your personality, parents might really freak you out, but don't be afraid of parents. And there will be some parents that are difficult, but I think the thing is that parents can be really helpful in supporting you, and kind of a multifaceted approach to kind of help the student. But think about, and I always think of this idea of a step forward, because I remember, was in a kinder, but I remember this time we were looking at a kinder, a local kinder for my son, and we just kind of, we just moved to the area and we didn't know, so we were just kind of looking around, and I remember we went to this classroom, and all of a sudden the teacher came out and came and started talking to us. And I just remember thinking, and it was actually my husband that said, a lot of times teachers particularly because we were just kind of like on a tour, and a lot of teachers will kind of avoid parents. And he was really impressed that this teacher went out of her way to kind of introduce herself to us. And I kind of think of that step forward of when you see a parent, you know, they're in your domain, you approach them, and it's that kind of confidence. And I think that sometimes parents and the worry of parents makes kind of particularly early career teachers question themselves. But I think it's exuding that confidence, knowing this is your domain, this is what, and putting that step forward instead of kind of fearing them. Because I think parents do know that when you kind of avoid them and you're a bit worried about them, it kind of already creates this imbalance. And I think making sure that you're putting a step forward instead of step back is really important when dealing with parents. The other thing that I would mention is that, use the collective nature of the class, of the school to really help you know how to communicate with parents. So talk with other teachers who already know your students' parents. And, they might have already had experiences that you can draw upon. So, if you know that you're going to have to address a tricky situation, really kind of get some advice from others of how you would do that. And I think that's the value of being an early career teacher, is that most teachers know that you're experiencing some of these things for the first time. And so they're very willing to share their own experiences and give advice of how to deal with that. But that also kind of leads to knowing kind of the general approach that your school has, and knowing the policies, that kind of informal policies on homework, missed days of class, approaches to behavior management. Knowing these and understanding them also helps you when talking with parents and saying, well, this is the school's policy, and I'm just following, I'm in line with that. So it's really understanding and using those networks, using those frameworks to actually help support you, so you're not feeling like you're just left to kind of make all these decisions on your own. Think about first impressions. Being organized, like for example, in a teacher-parent interview, being prepared, standing up, shaking their hand, looking presentable, all these sorts of things. First impressions really do matter. So you show that you're organized, you know what you're doing, you're confident, and those things will last. So do think about what kind of impression you want to make the first time you meet a parent. And then finally, just having evidence and artifacts ready to share. So in any time that you're talking with parents, having things that you can share that are tactile, that you can, well, here's an example. Because it's one thing to say, well, this is what I think, but this is actually showing the evidence of the student learning. Kind of switching gears, thinking about kind of steps forward, is think about, particularly policy, having that voice and advocating for you as a teacher. So understanding that you, in many ways, as an early career teacher, often you feel like you're the receiver of policy and that you just are trying to navigate these different policies. But consider how this affects you, and make sure that you are being vocal about how you're situated in it. For example, things like funding, be active in the teacher blogs or conversations, have a voice. Consider joining the union if that suits you. Also keep in touch with us at Monash. I think, we always really enjoy hearing your stories. And, as you know, I try to keep in contact with former students, also because they bring a lot back to the classes and giving their own experiences. And I think the thing is that, a lot of people talk about education and they talk about, oh, can you imagine being in the same classroom teaching the same thing for 30 years? And I think actually teaching doesn't have to be that habitual kind of, monotonous kind of activity. I think that there are so many exciting things about education, but it's really how you position yourself, how you see, how you, think of change, how you tackle problems in your classroom, how you think about innovation. And so that's a very exciting thing. So, thinking about how you can, even as an early career teacher, while you are still learning, thinking about the small things that you're doing to kind of be true to your own, contentions, your own kind of things that you really care about, and still learning as you go on. So these are just a few things that I leave you with as we finish up this unit. And then last but not least, make sure you complete your setu. We do really appreciate the feedback on there. That helps us kind of understand, give us a temperature of how we're doing, what we need to do to improve. And finally submit your assignment by the due date. Again, it's been such a pleasure to get to know you more, and we do wish that we had probably had more kind of contact with you, but don't be shy. We'll be around, we'll be at Monash, and hopefully we'll see you within, the Teaching and Learning building at some point. Say hi. And maybe this time you won't be in your pajamas on Zoom, but thank you again for a great semester, and we look forward to hearing all your exciting stories as you start your teaching careers next year. All right.